The press shows up, and the press says, Your Honor, Emmy Parsons says, it looks like the court is entering a sealed session, and we want access to this. There's a long line of cases grounded in the idea of a right of access. And the decision to close this is limited. You shouldn't be using this. And the judge says, I acknowledge we're operating on a last-minute basis to seal this, but at the same time, and I won't put them on the record, but this court has to consider the essential values, the integrity of these judicial proceedings, the nature of these proceedings are fundamentally the highest value in any criminal prosecution, and our interest overlaps with the press. So the press and the defense are begging, open this up, let us see it. He says the public has a right to know what goes on in the courtroom, and the right of any individual member of the public is being attenuated by denying them that right. A press member may be here to vindicate that right, but they still need to be here. And our defendants have a right in the Sixth Amendment. And closing the court abridges his rights in this trial. And the judge says, all right, listen, I'm still going to seal this court, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why I'm sealing this court, but the reasons are also going to be under seal. Well, that defeats the purpose, Judge, says the defense. Without going into the details, I think the public has a right to know why it's being excluded from the courtroom and have factual findings. Not only are they excluding us, but they're not telling us why they're excluding us. It's double lack of transparency. We want to know what the basis is. If the basis is to protect sources and methods or whatever the FBI makes up, why can't they tell us that? Kelly says, well, the problem with this case is there's no way for me to do that, okay? I can reach appropriate legal standards publicly, but there's no way for me to do anything more without defeating the very purpose of going under seal. All the defense attorneys are upset about this. Jaraguay, Tarrio joins. Okay, so this is something that's big. This is something that's very important. All the defendants want this out. The prosecutor, of course, sides with Kelly. He says, well, Judge, hold on. It would be appropriate to keep the court closed for fear of harming the integrity of the case. That's the point. That's the entire job of the defense, is to shatter the integrity of your case, because your case has no integrity. If it had a bunch of integrity, then you wouldn't be worried about the harm. What's the worry? What's the fear of harming the integrity of your case? Parsons says, Your Honor, there was already a sealed hearing yesterday for 3 hours, and you didn't put that in the docket either. So the judge is not even putting the sealed hearings in the record. We can't even follow along. So they're not telling us that they're sealing hearings or the reason for the sealed hearings, and they're still doing the sealed hearings. You said that you would provide a written order under seal laying out your specific findings, Judge. If you could just ensure...
Thank you for joining us back here on Just Conspiracy, where we wish to just conspire, bring together, spire, breath, spirit, bring together the breath and the spirits of the American people to make sure we can see a court of law one day soon. Because if we don't see a court of law one day soon, we're very, very likely to lose it forever. You were just listening to an attorney, Robert Gouveia. He's in Arizona, and he's interpreting text from Brandy Buckman. Brandy Buckman works for the media. She's down at the courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching the Proud Boys trial live from a media newsroom. For some reason, they can't just broadcast that recording all over the internet. Because even though we live in the day and age where everything can be open and transparent because we have an internet, all you gotta do is push the streaming button and you can send information all around the world and let everybody see it. For some reason, living in that day and age, and criminal courts on the federal level They don't let cameras in. They don't let recording devices in. We can't see or hear what's actually going on. But that's okay, because what Robert Gouveia is talking about and what Brandy Buckman is tweeting about, there's no way to misinterpret it. They're kicking out the media. They're kicking out the public. They're kicking out the press from a criminal trial here in America. They're going against the defendant's rights to an open and public trial. They're going against the public's rights to witness it. They don't care. They don't care. And personally, I believe nobody should be convicted of anything when that is the case. When we, the public, that's the whole reason we have trial by juries. Is because we, the public, have to see, we have to understand what happened. We don't give the power to the government to just do things against us without having a chance to convince our brothers and sisters that we didn't do anything wrong. And because of that, and because this is so politically charged, this is so politically motivated, the entire reason I'm making this video right now is to ask everybody to pray for truth and justice. I don't know if the Proud Boys will be able to be acquitted in that jurisdiction with how politically charged these charges are. The best I pray for is that we get a mistrial. The jury cannot be unanimous in their verdict and cause a mistrial. And I also hope and pray that Americans see how scary this is, and we come together and demand answers. We demand to see what's going on, what has to be sealed, what is so secret. Because this is supposed to be our government. This is supposed to be our government. So let's take a moment of silence and pray for truth and justice. Dear Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
And so they were pulling their punches on all the major questions and issues of what really happened in this thing, what the CIA's role was. Anytime they got into anything that was really sensitive about exactly that, exactly what the CIA's role was and exactly what laws were broken and when, they went into secret session, which means that we, the people, won't be, we won't ever know.
Like you, I do not wish to see secrets of this land inadvertently and accidentally made public. Accordingly, the panel will enter into executive session.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
One of the most threatening developments surrounding these revelations is the use of money raised through illegal activities to influence the American electoral process. There are growing indications that large amounts of offshore money are being funneled to conservative political action committees to mount campaigns against liberal congressmen up for re-election.
They have set themselves up as an independent government outside of our country's shores, operating out of private corporations with hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal. And they will not be told no. Not only they won't be told no by individual congressmen, because they will smash them politically. They've moved money into these PACs from offshore to help fund these campaigns against people who don't support their policies. We've come actually full circle where these people over on the Hill are intimidated, that they're afraid of having a whole campaign launched against them in their congressional district.
Hey, in the 70s, there was a congressman or two who really stood up to the CIA. There was Congressman Pike, who brought out a very, very critical report on what the CIA had been doing. And that man was destroyed. His report never even got to Congress. There was Senator Clark, for example, of the Clark Amendment, which stopped operations in Angola. prohibited the CIA from operating there. A lot of money came into his state in the next election. They said it was South African money. Who knows? And he was defeated. Senator Church, who led the overall critique of CIA operations, a lot of money came into his state of Idaho in the next election, and he was defeated. So congressmen can see who has the power and who has the money in these things. And every now and then, one or two of them will stand up and oppose them, but they need an awful lot of encouragement from the people before they're going to take on such powerful enemies.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.
We had weapons being sold by the Pentagon under the Economy Act to the CIA, and the CIA selling them to a third party or an agent, in the case of General Secord, who would then complete the transactions.
I'm just trying to find out where the authorities were coming from to do these activities. I mean, clearly, there was no congressional oversight over this because it was kept totally hidden from the Congress. From whom would you have to get the green light in order to make the request or the direction, I take it, to Secord to move ahead?
Well, as I have testified, Senator, I talked to Director Casey, I talked to Mr. McFarland, I talked to Admiral Poindexter.
The use of U.S. government money for supporting the overthrow of the Nicaraguan government was specifically prohibited when Congress enacted the Boland Amendment in 1984. Even though it remained in effect until 1986, millions of dollars in profits from Iranian arms sales were secretly diverted to the Contras during this period through contacts with middlemen such as Moniker Ghorbanifar.
Mr. Ghorbanifar took me into the bathroom, and Mr. Ghorbanifar suggested several incentives to make that February transaction work. And the attractive incentive for me was the one he made, that residuals could flow to support the Nicaraguan resistance.
Even Ghorbanifar knew that you were supporting the Contras.
Yes, he did. Izvestia knew it. The name had been in the papers in Moscow. It had been all over Danny Ortega's newscast. Radio Havana was broadcasting it. It was in every newspaper in the land.
All our enemies knew it, and you wanted to conceal it from the United States Congress.
We wanted to be able to deny a covert operation.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For your law is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
They will continue to carry on covert operations. I think this has been going on forever.
They make laws which are for us that they don't seem to be able to, they don't apply them to themselves very often.
How long are we going to stand for being deceived in this manner?
We will have to make a decision as a country, both Congress and executive, that we will not tolerate this kind of activity and we will go after the perpetrators.
These people do have faces. When we talk about the shadow government or we talk about the secret team, it's not something totally amorphous. These people are identifiable and can be brought to justice.
Covert operations have never done this country any good. They may be of momentary advantage to the people who are in power at a particular moment, but in terms of the interests of this country as a whole, they have proven disastrous. There isn't a single one in 30 years that you can point to and say, well, that was one that we are now more secure, better off, and happier as a result of. Every one of them has in its own way contributed to the deterioration of security in the world that we live in. And so it's really time to stop them.
Instead of operating within rules and law, we have been supplying lethal weapons to terrorist nations, trading arms for hostages, involving the U.S. government in military activities in direct contravention of the law, diverting public funds into private pockets and secret unofficial activities, selling access to the president for thousands of dollars, dispensing cash and foreign money orders out of a White House safe, accepting gifts and falsifying papers to cover it up, altering and shredding national security documents, lying to the Congress. Now, I believe that the American people understand that democracy cannot survive that kind of abuse.
And forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. May all Americans be free to be able to express their political ideas, to be able to be politically dissident. May we never come to a time where we lose the rule of law forever and entirely to pursue our own wishes, our own desires, our own lust, our own envy, and jealousy. And with that in mind, let me tell you about a time that I saw something like this happen before. That's with the Iran-Contra affair. When they were going after the people who worked for the CIA assets, selling cocaine here in America, in American cities, creating the crack epidemic, they sealed off the proceedings. They had evidence that was not disclosed. They said it was because of national security. The CIA had to protect their asset. They wouldn't be very valuable to them in a federal penitentiary. Then they'd have to pass them off to the FBI. And we're going to talk about this more in my next video, but when I was doing research for it, I kind of found it real interesting how back in the late 80s, you had the liberal media, you had Democrats investigating Republicans, and they were calling for the arrest, charges. Nobody spent a day in jail, nobody spent a day in prison. And that's what always happens. That's what always happens. So, on the right, I know that you feel politically persecuted right now. But for most of American history, it's been the left that has been politically persecuted. And the right, the Republican side of America, they didn't hold Nixon accountable for Watergate. They didn't hold Reagan accountable for Iran-Contra. They didn't hold George Bush Jr. accountable for spying on American citizens. And they didn't think, through all of that time of not holding those people accountable, they didn't think it would ever get to this. Because their party was in control. Their party was in control of the law. But now it's here. And if you're on the left, you've been on the other side of that foot. For most of American history, the left has been the ones getting beat up on. So it probably feels good to them right now to have the power to go and beat up on the right. That's just a common fact about tribalism. This situation happening to the Proud Boys, to Donald Trump, to us, these United States, it's a reflection of ourselves. We're our own worst enemies. But one thing that both the left and the right have agreed upon at different times is the fact that there is a secret government behind the scenes controlling who gets into office, who has power, who has campaign money. And if that's true, if there is some type of conspiracy wishing to suppress our breath, suppress our spirit, then I guess we should probably get together, cut through the BS, find out what's going on, have real prosecutions, hold real criminals accountable, and move on with our merry lives in a future where nobody has to worry about their political speech and their political actions. Thank you for joining us here at Just Conspiracy, where we wish to conspire to bring heaven down to earth. One world, love, and peace.